So this one will be the correct one. Now I'm going to try to answer some of the questions of the section of the enzymes. In this question, in a chemical reaction, atoms do which of the following? They remain bound to the same atoms sometimes, but this is not a chemical, exactly a chemical reaction. Split in half. Actually, this is not correct. Atoms are not going to split in half. Combine two new atoms and is true. An increase in size is not always true. So the best answer here, it will be C. So if you remember, when we talk in the video lecture, I show you that here you have reactants and products, and during this chemical reaction, A and B are together, and C and D are together, and during the chemical reaction, they break and form new bonds during the progress of the reaction. So the best answer will be combined with new atoms. So what is the activation energy? And the activation energy, the right answer is this one, is the energy needed to destabilize a molecule before it can react. The other ones are not correct. And if you have a doubt, in case that you have any doubt, I'm going to just replay a video that you watch in your video lecture.
If exergonic reactions occur spontaneously, what keeps molecules from breaking apart and cell chemistry from racing out of control? For any reaction to occur, even a downhill reaction, some energy must be added to get the reaction going. This energy is needed to break bonds in the reactant molecules. The energy needed to start a chemical reaction is called the energy of activation, E sub A. This required energy input represents a barrier that prevents even energy-releasing exergonic reactions from occurring without some added energy. How does a living cell overcome the energy barrier so that its metabolic reactions can occur quickly and precisely? A special kind of protein called an enzyme is the answer. An enzyme serves as a biological catalyst, increasing the rate of a reaction without being changed into a different molecule. An enzyme does not add energy to a reaction. Instead, it speeds up a reaction by lowering the energy barrier. An enzyme is very selective. Its three-dimensional shape allows it to act only on specific molecules, referred to as the enzyme substrates. As the substrates bind to the enzyme's active site, they are held in a position that facilitates the reaction. This takes less activation energy than the unaided reaction. Products form and are released. The enzyme emerges unchanged from the reaction.
So the answer as we watch in the video is A. So let's go with the next questions. How do enzymes speed up chemical reactions? Enzymes cause atoms to move more quickly, so this is not the right one. Enzymes lower the temperature of the atoms, not the right one according to the video that we just watched. Enzymes raise the amount of energy needed to cause the reaction. Actually, it's the opposite. So enzymes lower the activation energy needed to get the reaction going. So this is the answer. So if you have any doubt, you can rewatch the video, but I think this is very easy. The idea, as we watch in the video, is that as they show, an enzyme is going to reduce the activation energy as they talk, and this reduction is going to make the more likely that this reaction take place. So answer will be D, very easy. Okay, now this question. Reactants capable of interacting to form products in a chemical reaction must first overcome a thermodynamic barrier known as. So some of you asked me to ask you questions and see how the book rephrased some of the things. This is again the same answer, activation energy, and it's an example of how they rephrase the answers. So again, the answer will be activation energy. Okay, this is again the same question, but they are just phrasing it in a different way and showing you an example. So here they are talking about a solution, in this case a starch, that at room temperature doesn't easily decompose to form a simple sugar. And why this happened? And the answer, if you read all of this one, you know that is the activation energy barrier for this reaction cannot be achieved. So it's again a different way to phrase the same question, but here they are just showing you an example. So again, they are just phrasing the question in a different way, just giving you an example, and here is the answer. Although E is true, starch hydrolysis is not spontaneous, is not completely answering the question, and the other answers are statements are or incorrect or not completely answer the question. I just wanted to show you again an example of something that you already know and how the textbook can just make an example of something that you know. And you should be able to, as you grasp the concept, you should be able to answer this question. So let's try to answer now this question. And here the question says the mechanism in which the end product of a metabolic pathway inhibit an earlier step in a pathway is most precisely described. And here, if you see all the questions said inhibition, 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 and inhibition. However, here the key component is that the end product, so you have many, here is the beginning of the pathway. You have enzymes that go all the way here, and at the end, these produce the product here will inhibit this pathway. So this is giving a feedback inhibition. Yeah, the other ones are wrong. And let me show you the specific movies and the specific slides that in which I explained that. So as I said before, here you can see the movie that I show you.
Many of the enzyme-catalyzed reactions that occur in a cell, such as those involved in the biosynthesis of an amino acid, are carried out in a specific sequence called a biochemical pathway. In such pathways, the product of one reaction becomes the substrate for the next reaction. If the end product of a pathway, such as an amino acid, becomes available in the environment, it is unnecessary and wasteful for the cells to continue to produce the product. Cells therefore have the ability to shut down a pathway when it is not needed. In feedback inhibition, the end product of the pathway reacts with the first enzyme that is unique to the pathway. The reaction occurs at a site on the enzyme that is different from the active site, called the allosteric site. When the product binds to the allosteric site, the enzyme undergoes a conformational change and can no longer react with its substrate. There is no substrate for subsequent steps in the pathway, and the final product is no longer synthesized.
Here is the slide where I explain the feedback inhibition again in both in the movie and in this slide I show the same thing. Here the end product, here the reaction goes in this direction, and the end product will inhibit. It's like a switch on and off that create a feedback that inhibit this pathway. So remember to go back and read all these things. To answer this question, you need to know what is free energy. So a reaction that absorbs free energy, so this is fundamental, and this delta G is important, from its surrounding. It is a what type of reaction? So if you remember, the free energy is the amount of energy that it can be used for work, and is related to the concept of being spontaneous, and is related to these two concepts. This delta G is endergonic and exergonic, depending if the delta G is positive or negative. And Well, this endothermic and exothermic is related to the energy, the transfer of heat between the system and the surroundings. So just from the beginning, you know that this here, when they say free energy, they are not talking about these two. And this spontaneous, although it's a concept related, is not exactly the same thing. And here you just you discard all these three, and now you only have these two. And now if you see that it said absorb instead of release, if it was release, it will be exergonic. As it's absorbed, it will be endergonic. So this is the right answer, and I'm going to show you a few more slides to explain in more detail this, or to remind you where you have to look in the video lecture or in your textbook. So as I said before, we have exergonic and endergonic reaction and result in changes in Gibbs free energy. And here you have in one axis with Gibbs free energy, and here you have again the same one, Gibbs free energy, and here you have in the other axis time. Here you have the reactants, and here you have the products, and here you have the delta G. Well, here you have a delta. Well, this one is positive, this one is negative. So as a result of this graph, the reaction in an endergonic reaction is not spontaneous. You need to invest energy to make it possible. The energy need to be absorbed, and the delta G is positive. On the other hand, here the reaction in the exergonic reaction, they are spontaneous, they release energy, and they are negative. So just remember this to answer this question, and as they ask that it absorbs energy, free energy, this is the right answer. So this is the other concept that you might have to remember to answer this question. That is, what is the difference between exothermic and endothermic reactions? And to do that, you need to remember that here we're talking about heat transfer between the system and the surrounding. Here, this is the system, and here in blue, this is the surrounding. Here again, system, and here the surrounding will be in orange. So here the heat transfer goes from the system to the surrounding. So here this is hot, so the heat is going outside. So here in this case, the internal energy of the system decreases, and this is called an exothermic reaction, while in the endothermic reaction, the opposite happens. So the heat transfer, it goes from the surrounding, so there is heat coming from outside and is melting the ice. So the internal energy of the system increases, and this is called an endothermic process. So yes, they sound very similar, but they are not exactly the same concept. Exothermic, endothermic, and exergonic and endergonic reaction. So just for you to remember, this is in this one we're talking about heat transfer, and here we're talking about delta G, so free energy, the one that we can use to do some work. And again, if you go in your slides of the video lecture, we talk about that, and this is also in your textbook. So the answer again, endergonic, because absorb free energy, and just knowing this, absorb and free energy, you right away know that they are talking about this, about endergonic reactions. And if you go to the video lectures, you will see that here they don't talk, I talk about net release of free energy, and that is spontaneous. So you already know that this is not exergonic. This is wrong.